Act 2 of the Gospel of Mark begins in 827 and proceeds through the end of chapter 10, with a dramatic change in tone as Jesus teaches the 12. Thousands of people have been earlier beneficiaries of Jesus' ministry, and they've heard and responded to the news of the kingdom with faith. And he's told some of them to stay silent, but he's told others to go and tell what has happened to them. The 12 are different. Jesus is not content to just go viral, blow up, and become a famous figure in ancient Palestinian Judaism. God has sent him for a new beginning for Israel as well as the nations. Jesus doesn't just want multitudes. He doesn't just want likes. He doesn't even just want subscribers. He wants lives. He needs deep soil to work with. And the disciples aren't that great soil, but they'll do. The shift happens right after the story of that double half healing, which is why it's so suggestive. Jesus goes with his disciples and he asks them on the way to Caesarea Philippi, "Who do people say that I am?" And they give him the popular opinion. Some say John the Baptist, others Elijah, or one of the prophets. They're probably too polite to mention all the opponents who think that he's a charlatan, a false prophet, a blasphemer. And then Jesus asked them, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter, good old Peter, answered him, "You are the Messiah." And Jesus strictly charged the 12 not to tell anyone about him. Why not? Well, we're about to find out. And Jesus began to teach them that the Son of Man, there's that phrase again, must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders and the chief priests and the scribes and be killed and after 3 days rise again. And he said this plainly. Jesus isn't speaking to outsiders here. He's not using parabolic language because he doesn't need it. He is coaching his disciples. And Peter took Jesus aside and began to rebuke him. "You can't mean that, Jesus." But turning and seeing his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan." Satan doesn't come up all the time in Mark's gospel, but Satan comes up at key moments. He is the tempter. He's the one who steals away the word so that it gets no effect. You aren't setting your mind, Peter, on the things of God, but on the things of human beings. And calling the crowd to him now with the disciples, he said, "If anyone would come after me, let that one deny himself," I'm going to stick with the masculine language for a moment, "and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake and the gospel's sake will save it. What does it profit someone to gain the whole world but forfeit one's own soul? What can someone give in return for their own soul? For whoever is ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of that one will the Son of Man also be ashamed, when he comes in the glory of his Father with his holy angels." A stern rebuke, a firm correction, and then clear teaching that the way of Jesus and the way of any disciple of Jesus is the way of the cross. He tells them this 3 times in Act 2, and chapters 9 and 10 show an increasing focus on discipleship, on cross-bearing, and on suffering. The news isn't all depressing, though. Act 2 features the account of the Transfiguration, where Peter, James, and John go up on the mountain, and they see the kind of thing that only Moses saw. Here's a picture I showed you in the lecture on 2 Peter because, to remind you, 2 Peter also mentions the Transfiguration. Jesus was transformed. The Greek word is metamorphosis. And the 2 figures who saw God on Mount Sinai appear with him. The baton has been passed. They disappear. The voice from heaven says, "This is my Son, whom I have chosen. Listen to him." They clear the scene and Jesus is left. God revealed himself on Sinai to Moses and to Elijah. Peter, James, and John are seeing the revelation of Jesus Christ, the Lord. Yet again, chapter 9, verse 9, as they were coming down the mountain, Jesus charged them to tell no one what they had seen until the Son of Man had risen from the dead. So they kept the matter to themselves, questioning what this rising from the dead might mean. Even the disciples don't get his upcoming death or resurrection or what they mean, let alone the multitudes, let alone the opponents. The pace has slowed down remarkably since Mark's first few chapters. We are now in the middle of the film where some deep work is being done, and the stage is being set for the showdown of Act 3. After Jesus has predicted his murder for the 3rd time, James and John came up to him and said, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask." And Jesus said to them, "What do you want me to do for you?" And they said to him, "Grant us to sit one at your right hand and one at your left in your glory." Jesus said to them, probably with quite a note of exasperation, "You don't know what you're asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink, or be baptized with the baptism with which I'm baptized?" They said, "We are able." What cup is that? If you've read the gospel already, you already know. He refers to it in his prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane. It's his crucifixion. His baptism under John was just an overture of the real baptism which is coming on Golgotha, when he offers himself without reservation as a sacrifice. Skipping down to verse 42, Jesus contrasts his mindset with James and John's, really with the world's mindset. You know that those who are considered rulers of the nations lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. But it shall not be so among you. Whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be slave of all. For the Son of Man, there's that title, came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. The kingdom of God is the obverse of the world's kingdoms. Instead of power plays, it's about service, the kind of service that Jesus is leading up to with his life. And then comes a second exchange, a far different one with the same sentence embedded in the middle. They came to Jericho, which is near Jerusalem, where the showdown is going to happen. And as he was leaving Jericho, Bartimaeus, a blind beggar, was sitting by the roadside. And when he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he cried out and said, "Jesus, Son of David," you're going to hear that in the next chapter, "have mercy on me." Jesus called Bartimaeus over, and they help him come to Jesus. And Jesus says to the blind man, "What do you want me to do for you?" This is the same question that Jesus asked James and John, but under completely different circumstances. They had said, "We want you to do what we ask." The blind man is just saying, "Have mercy on me." Jesus ordinarily does not ask these kinds of questions when he's about to heal someone or cleanse someone or cast out a demon. The blind man said, "Rabbi, let me recover my sight." And Jesus said, "Go your way. Your faith has made you well." And immediately, and this is a double meaning here, he recovered his sight and followed him on the way. Another contrast. The disciples can't see the character of the kingdom or its king, even though they've been following him all this time. But Bartimaeus can see immediately, and what he does is follow Jesus along the way, and that way is going to go to Jerusalem. That verse, Bartimaeus followed him along the way, is the last word before Act 3's triumphal entry and the showdown that results from it. There is a way forward. There's a way forward for the disciples. There's a way forward for all of us. It's not a way that anyone wants to go, including Jesus, who prays that there might be some other way. But it's the only way.